Good morning, everyone. I hope that you are all easing into the new normal. We are live for our weekly Trinity Talk, an online discussion of current events and issues. But before I start to give you an overview of our topic for today, let me give you a brief recap of the topics that have been covered during the first and the second episodes. In the first one, we tackled COVID's impact on education and the future of the job market. Then in the second installment, we extensively discussed COVID's impact on our psychological well-being. In today's episode, we will tackle COVID's impact on society and culture. What has happened to social life in general now that social distancing is going to be with us for a while? How are we to reimagine socialization now that isolationism appears to be a lot safer than random social encounters? What values have been shaken by COVID-19 that might have robbed us of our expectations of a better future? What exactly do we mean by the new normal? What really is new about it? Are people becoming more or less religious because of COVID? Are churches doing enough to help the faithful in these trying times? Are we witnessing the resurgence of a politically involved populace, even if this crisis continues to offer us reasonable grounds against mass gatherings? From our end, I hope that we will draw you in intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually. I hope that today's discussion will be a fun hour and it's going to be intellectually stimulating and enriching as well. But before we get down to business, we need to take stock of where we are right now. What happened during these long months of lockdown? Do you have stories to tell? Do you have your own tale from lockdown? Is your story a narrative of wisdom, like that of the Buddha? Is it one of hope? Or maybe one of despair, doubt, love, anger, or even a revolt? I personally believe that it pays to listen to people's aspirations and regrets, even if these regrets are belated ones, even resentments in times of crisis, even if they might contain some loose ends. By loose ends, I take it to mean stories that appear to have never-ending endings. This morning, we are so lucky and honored to have invited three panelists who are all experts and prominent in their respective fields. Our first guest is the president of Good Faith Public Relations and Communication Services. She was also the former director of communications for Avon Philippines. She's a graduate of Trinity High, and she's a BA in Communication Arts from UP Diliman. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Faith Fernandez Mondihar.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Hello, everyone.
Umaga, Ms. Faith. Our second guest is Miss Multinational Philippines 2019, a multi-awarded actress, singer, host, painter, instrumentalist, and an entrepreneur. Join me in welcoming Ms. Isabel De Leon. Good morning, Isa.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Last but not the least, our third panelist is the director of the Development Studies program of the Ateneo. He's a sociologist, but he's not just your regular sociologist. I would consider him as a sociologist with the rock star status. He's so
Wow.
Millennials, young people today. He's also a prolific writer. I think he contributes regularly for Rappler, and I've read some of his works. Most of his researches were published in reputable journals. He is an engaged researcher of society and culture. Let us all welcome Dr. Jail Cornelio, or Dr. Jail.
Great. Good morning, Sir Dennis. Good morning to everybody who is joining us today. I hope that our conversation will be really inspiring, insightful, but also stimulating. I agree with my fellow panelists here. Looking forward to what's going to transpire in the minutes ahead. Salamat po.
Hopefully our discussion will be more of a cross between Boy Abunda's Controversial and Randy David's Public Forum. Okay, I'll begin by raising questions for Miss Faith, because Miss Faith, I think, is an expert in press relations and communication. My question for Miss Faith is that, do you believe that COVID-19 might represent a great paradigm shift? What has changed? I believe that communication and connection are two important components of our social life, right? But in this time of crisis, how do we connect? How do we communicate? And if you can speak to the great COVID crisis today, what are the ways in which the way we connect and the way we communicate have changed? Miss Faith?
Sir Dennis, we seem to have lost Miss Faye just now. Baka naging spotty yung internet connection niya.
Okay. Can I ask Miss Isa instead?
Yes, Sir Dennis.
My question for Miss Isa is that, well, napakahaba nung time na naka-lockdown tayo, napakahaba nung time na naka-quarantine tayo.
Opo.
A lot of things have changed. Ang question ko sa iyo, napag-isip-isip mo ba kung during this lockdown, kung ano ba talaga ang mahalaga sa buhay?
Yes. Kasi ngayon mas may time. Ayan, we have Miss Faith ulit. Welcome back, Miss Faith. We really, at least for me personally, I really took this time to quiet down with myself, with my thoughts, and just really resonate with myself, yung what makes me happy. Kasi pagka ang daming
What makes you
trabaho, ang daming
What are the
nangyayari.
things?
Hello, Sir Lenny.
Ano yung sources? Yeah. Anong sources?
A lot of things.
Like,
Just really simple things that you put aside when you're too busy with work. You tend to, yes, medyo naglalag lang, sorry. Kaya I need to really focus. Pasensya na kasi medyo nagpuputol-putol po yung connection, Sir Dennis. Pero yun po, pagka ang dami mo kasing work, kumbaga you tend to put aside those wants and those things that makes you happy kasi mas may goal ka, mas may mataas kang pinupursue na goals. Pero during the lockdown, I was really able to resonate with myself and I had more time with my family. Sabi nga nila na COVID-19 brought families together kasi now you get to video call with your families, my family in the US or in the Australia. Na we never really got to do it before this pandemic happened. So in a way, siguro by just tweaking your perspective a little bit, you'll get to see the glass half full instead of half empty.
Are there things or certain beliefs that you don't want to let go of your lovely, I would call lovely lockdown life? Are there certain things that you want to preserve after COVID? Are there certain beliefs or things that you want to give up after COVID?
Siguro po, Sir Dennis, what I really want to hold on to during this lockdown period is yung time to really self-reflect some more. Kasi mas meron kang mas nababalanse niyo uh, yung mga decision mo sa buhay, career-wise and personal life. And sa tingin ko, yun yung parang na-taken for granted ko. Kasi mas masyado ako naging passionate in pursuing my goals, which is not bad, by the way. Pero if you're too busy pursuing a lot of things all at the same time, and you don't get to quiet down with your thoughts, mas hindi mo nababalanse yung best option. Sabi nga, mas mahirap pumili ng between sa good and great. Madaling pumili yung bad or good, madaling pili na good. Pero yung good between sa great and good, yun yung medyo mahirap na timbangin kung ikaw ay laging nagmamadali. Pero during this lockdown period, I was really able to do that, to self-reflect.
You were able to maintain a balanced lifestyle at least. Okay, let me ask Gio.
Yes, sir.
Does this ASA's story or narrative from lockdown more or less reflect aspirations of the millennials today? Mas mature ba talaga ang mga millennials when they are in a moment of crisis?
No, that's Sir Dennis. That's a very good question. Let me say that from the point of view of sociology, crisis has the ability to let the values that matter in a society shine through, right? And this is why, in many ways, we see how in times of disaster or in times of crisis, di ba sa mga panahon ng mga kaguluhan, halimbawa yung Yolanda and so forth, you see people trying to do something to cope with the situation. But at the same time, I have to admit that crisis can also cripple the best in our society. Because and why? Because the social order that was there before the crisis finally got arrested. All of a sudden, hindi ka na pwedeng lumabas. All of a sudden, hindi ka na pwedeng pumunta sa mall. Hindi ka na pwedeng magsimba. Things that matter to Filipinos, mall at saka church, shopping at saka religion. There cannot be something more important than these two for many Filipinos, consumption and religion. So nawala lahat yon. So some people were forced to be with their families, and that's a good thing. Right? So like yung kwento ni Isabel, right? But we also have to realize na the ability to cope with this situation, Sir Dennis, is really contingent on whether a person has these resources, the privileges. So katulad natin na mga professors, mga professionals, we can work from home. But there are many people who cannot work from home. We know na unemployment jumped from 5.9%, pinakamababa na sana natin, or 5.6% in our history, bumalik tayo to 17%. So many people are unemployed right now. So gusto ko lang na maging malinaw yon sa lahat ng mga nakikinig sa atin, nanonood sa atin, that yes, in as much as millennials, like Isabel, kasama pa ako sa millennials, sir, kasi 1980s na cut off kami. So pasok pa ako doon. Si Miss Faith din yata kasama pa sa millennials.
No, I have kids who are millennials.
Right? So in as much as very aspirational ang mga millennials, you're right, who are very eager to do something and passionate to do something, but in reality, there are many other millennials who are crippled, whose dreams are crippled right now, and I hope that we can do something.
Yes, so tama.
Okay, let me ask Miss Faith. Miss Faith, can you share with us at least two important lessons? I would call them existential lessons that COVID has taught you.
What I can think of right now, I would probably highlight two, and that would be, the first one would be resilience. Just to give a background, a personal background, before the pandemic happened, I've always been described, and I've always, considered myself to be someone who wants everything planned, wants everything organized. So this sense of, planning actually would give me that sense of control, which would actually give me that sense of peace also. But when we started with our life in isolation, I still had that planned mindset, but instead of it being a source of peace for me, it actually was the reason, or it actually was the one that chipped away at my sense of peace. Because, of course, you have this mindset,
Wow.
but of course, you're already working in an environment where there are so many uncertainties. There are so many things, all your familiar have changed. Everything that you've known to be things that you've known before have completely vanished, have completely changed. So you're dealing with a different terrain. And, I found myself trying to grope my way through it again. So with resilience, all the things that happened to me, projects that were supposed to be, projects that I was supposed to do were suddenly being canceled. Family plans were suddenly being canceled. So all these things. And then one other thing, one important thing that happened at the start of the lockdown, my husband became ill. So hindi naman, not COVID-19, but it was a serious bout with pneumonia. So, at the time when the last place you'd want to find yourself in was a hospital, we were there because my husband had to be admitted. So that was really something very, that it caused a lot of confusion. It caused a lot of anxiety on my part. So that's what led me to actually say, let's just live life one day at a time. And I was telling myself, the battles that I have for this day, I will have enough strength to face them today. Whatever battles that will await me tomorrow, I will have the same. I will have sufficient amount of strength to face them tomorrow. So it's really that being able to accept things, all the opportunities that come in a day, as well as embrace the anxieties, and then just roll with the punches as you go through the day. So that's the first lesson that I learned. The other one, Dennis, that I learned really is empathy. I would go back to that story about my husband being admitted in the hospital, because that was really a very alarming and worrying situation in our life. At that time, when the doctor was about to tell him the result of the few tests that he had to take, that's when I realized that no credentials on earth would matter. I mean, no eloquence, would be needed, because all you can say and do at that time is really just pray. So I remember at that moment of utter helplessness, of that utter dependence on God, I just remember that all I could say was Hail Mary and just pray. And that moment, that very moment of helplessness and dependence on God is what stayed with me long after my husband has been, after we've left the hospital, and up to this day, it stays with me. It's what I always go back to every time I hear of family members or friends who are also in the same situation. And it actually is leading me to reach out actively and just to tell them, or lend a listening ear, or ask them what kind of help they need, because sometimes that's all they need to know, that someone is out there who's ready to listen, that someone is out there who's just ready to lend a hand. And sometimes that's all they need to just survive and overcome that period of crisis in their lives. So empathy and resilience, two important lessons I've learned from the life in lockdown.
Yeah, okay. What an inspiring pandemic story.
Thank you, Dennis.
May question lang ako kay Doc Jill. First,
sir.
is the overly emphasized Filipino trait, which we call resilience. Hindi kaya masyadong naro-romanticize naman yata ito, no? To the point of completely forgetting that what we are experiencing right now uh, might be the result of state neglect. How do we
I
strike a
am
balance?
very glad, Sir Dennis, that you brought that up. Yeah, yeah, no, I'm very glad that you brought that up, Sir David, Sir Dennis, only because resilience around the world, lalo na sa mga developing countries, ginagamit ito ng Estado para sabihin nila sa mga tao nila na ano tayo, kaya natin ito, kayang-kaya natin ito. But in reality, it's because the state has failed people. Lumabas yung resilience, naging ano siya eh, naging uso siya nung panahon ng Yolanda, kung maaalala natin, na
Yes.
parang the Filipino spirit is waterproof o yung mga ganyan, or tapos hanggang ngayon ng virus ng COVID, may mga nakita ko mga t-shirt, COVID ka lang, virus ka lang, Pinoy kami. So it celebrates the ability of our culture. Of course, it is a good thing. Pero taken to a certain extreme, once it becomes the dominant discourse, kaya natin ito, then all the responsibility is on us, on the individual. Pero kung babalikan natin, wait a minute, hindi ba January pa lang dapat napaghandaan na natin ito, ng Estado ito? Tapos ang sabi ng ating mga government leaders at the time, Sir Dennis, we're prepared, everything is under control. June, ano ngayon? June 27, 30 plus thousand, 30,000 plus cases. Pinaghandaan natin ito. Anong resilience ang pinag-uusapan natin? Anong under control ang pinag-uusapan natin dito? So with while I personally recognize the psychological capacity of Filipinos to fight back on their own, so katulad ng kay Ma'am Faith and many stories like Isabel's or even ours, no? Sir Dennis, mag-online na tayo. Kailangan natin ng masigasig na resilience dyan. Lalo nakaharap mo, camera lang. Resilience talaga ang kailangan natin dyan. But there are many people who are in fact left behind. So, in other words, when we say that Filipinos are resilient, I think magiging mas sensitive tayo kapag nakita natin na, wait a minute, ang resilience ko ba ay ibig sabihin nito, wala nang ginagawa yung pamahalaan, wala nang ginagawa yung community namin, and then everybody else is suffering as a result of that. So that's my point, Sir Dennis.
Thank you, Doc. We have one question from one of the viewers. The question is, how can people cope mentally and emotionally from the changes and challenges being posed by this pandemic? Maybe anyone among you can address this question and answer the question.
Okay. If I may answer first. So in terms of like coping, I think being able to actually go back, to find your center and actually reflect in terms of what's important to you or
When you say finding your center, what do you mean by that? Because for
finding your
some
center is,
people, by center, they take it to be in God, right? But
yes.
by center
is
you take it to
actually
be what?
being, just finding yourself. Okay, really thinking and really reflecting on who you are, what you really want, what you really believe in, and what you're really passionate about. It's really finding your center. So in finding your center, I think that's, for me, that's an important first step for anyone to step out on the road to coping in the midst of a crisis such as COVID-19, the COVID-19 pandemic. In my case, coping had to do with it's also learning, right? So learning, it's finding what you're strong in, finding your passion, and then learning to do new things. So it's really those things that have been helpful in terms of like coping. But then there's no, I cannot say that there's just one way of coping, because I think one's method of coping is different from another person's method of coping. Why? Because we are different individuals. Okay, we have different experiences. We have different things that are important to us. So definitely, we cannot judge one's way of coping as against another person's way of coping. So it's really, that's why for me, it's really finding out who you are. It's really going there, finding your center, and starting off from there to find what you want to do, what you want to do, the new things that you want to do, new things that you want to learn. And that's something, on a personal note, that was something that was helpful to me during the pandemic. It was really finding new things, because I couldn't do the work that I could do before the pandemic. So what was it that I could do? I wanted to make my home a safe and happy place for my children. So while I was not a good cook before, I started cooking. I started baking. So I started spending more time in the kitchen. That was for me my way of coping. And then seeing the good results and how they were making my family happy, those for me, those really had a very calming effect on me, and somehow empowered me to hold on to my sense of peace at that time.
Doc, I've heard of the theology of hope, the philosophy of hope, but as a sociologist, can you also craft your own version of hope, which
A
we
sociology of hope.
sociology of hope to
Oo. Oo.
help us at least find our way out of the maze right now.
Oo. Sir Dennis, medyo hopeless ang sociology eh. Kasi parang where everybody sees the positive, yung sociologist papasok, negative ang una niya makikita. So, kaya depressive ang course ng sociology. So mga estudyante ko, parang they come in happy, and then lalabas sila ng classroom na parang ang lungkot-lungkot nila. But let me try. I think yung sinasabi ni Miss Faith, and hopefully si Isabel din, baka meron din siya mga coping strategies, no? Ano to, it only goes to show that people are willing to fight back, right? And sometimes some people have more resources to fight back, right? And it's because of our privileges, no? Class, sa sociology ang tawag natin dyan ay life chances. So some people have better life chances at fighting back. Mga opportunities kasi they studied in a good school, they have a very good training, they have very good set of skills, and so forth, right? So they can fight back more readily. They're prepared for war, as it were. But some people are not. Kaya mahalaga dito yung tinatawag na capacity building. So from a very sociological perspective, hope cannot only be a transcendental thing, and that's fine. Religion offers that, faith offers that, philosophy offers that, yung concept ng centering and finding your ground and in the here and now. That's very Buddhist as well, yung ganong klaseng philosophy. Be in the present. But at the same time, kailangan din natin ma-realize, why am I able to do it like this, pero how come many others are not? So yung sensitivity to inequality, if I could use that word, is very, very important. At the same time, Sir Dennis, if I could just have 30 more seconds, at the same time, gusto ko rin siguro sa Filipinos, no, sa atin sa Pilipino, mahilig tayo sa doon sa bawal sumimangot, ngumiti ka lang. Diba? Pag pupunta tayo sa church, kung kayo ay members ng mga charismatic churches, bawal na nakasimangot sa iglesia natin. Sa umagang ito, tayo ay magpupuri lang sa Diyos, for example. Right? Or bawal tayong malungkot. Put it all together with what you see on Facebook, lahat masaya, lahat puro positive. What do you have? It's toxic positivity, Sir Dennis.
Yeah.
It's really toxic positivity. So yung hope, taken to a certain extreme, interpreted in terms of happiness, performance of happiness can actually backfire later on.
Yeah.
Right.
Alam natin sa research, sa communication research, media research, na in fact, people feel more depressed after being on Facebook after a certain point in time. Dahil nakikita nila, bakit lahat na lang mga posts masasaya? Tapos, ano. So we have to be very careful when it comes to thinking about being positive and being hopeful about life. Ayan, hindi ako masyadong hopeless, sir.
Actually, Doc Jail, yung ako din, personally, kinailangan ko rin i-acknowledge yung anxiety that I feel, yung feeling na nabago, nawala lahat yung routine, yung kagaya ng sinabi rin ni Miss Faith, na lahat planado mo na, then biglang canceled last minute. But kagaya nga rin sinabi ni Doc Jail na naging pagka tinry mong i-deny yung nararamdaman mo na yon, magiging toxic positivity siya talaga. So it all begins with acknowledging how you're feeling, but not letting your emotions overwhelm you. Na you'd lose focus. Na okay, ito na yung situation. I have to adjust. We all have to adjust. What's next? Diba? So during that lockdown period, how I cope up with the situation was at first I did what I wanted to do, which is play music and all that. Hindi ko muna pinressure yung sarili ko na I have to be productive. Kasi 'di ba, maraming nag-isip na I have to be productive during this lockdown period. Pero
were you able to compose your own pandemic song?
Actually, I'll get to that, Sir Dennis.
Okay.
So, yun, medyo nag-relax lang ako. Kumbaga, kinalma ko yung sarili ko and in-acknowledge ko how I'm feeling. I'm feeling anxious. I'm feeling sad. In-acknowledge ko yun. And then, after I've acknowledged that, I said to myself, you know what? I'm gonna start working out. And I'm gonna start becoming productive. And that's how I ended up collaborating with the Department of Education, si Undersecretary Elaine Pasqua. I collaborated with them to write a tribute song for our frontliners entitled Bayanihan. So I wrote that song po, both the music and the lyrics, during the lockdown period to really give a big salute to our frontliners who's putting themselves out there. So yun po, nakakatuwa naman. Medyo, kumbaga, by tweaking yung perspective ko, I think I was able to make the most pa rin kahit mahirap dito sa sitwasyon ng lockdown po. So yun.
Nice.
Beautiful story. Inspiring story. My question dito for Miss Isa. What did you feel when the international pageant where you're supposed to compete was canceled? The question came from Professor Divino Cantao, your mentor.
Hi, Sir Dines. Honestly, I think, although I was preparing for it, I was never complacent, pero mas mahalaga yung safety ng tao. And may tamang panahon para sa pageantry. Kung ito ay, although update lang po, it's rescheduled po ngayong December, this year, December. So, na-rescheduled po siya. But at the end of the day, ang pinakamahalaga pa rin naman yung safety ng ating kapwa. So, okay lang sa akin yun kung na-reschedule siya or ma-cancel, papunta siya next year. Ano naman po yan yun naman po yung hierarchy na mas mahalaga pa rin yung safety ng mga kandidata at ng bawat isa na may involve po sa pageantry.
Thank you. Meron pa isang question dito from Yuli of Manila. He's asking about the concept of positive stress. What positive stress can we learn from this pandemic? Miss Faith might want to address this question.
Positive stress.
Yeah,
Okay.
siguro may negative, may positive din. No? May kind of can make us
Yeah. So
productive.
there are so many types of stresses that life in the time of COVID-19, has introduced and presented to all of us. But again, in terms of positive stress, so let me just answer that question by sharing another personal story that came out of this pandemic. So I mentioned earlier about me going back to the kitchen, learning to cook, learning to bake. So that actually was a positive stress, a very positive stress for me. Stressful because it was something I wasn't used to doing, but at the same time because it was it was helping me feel positive. It was helping me feel at peace. That was for me a source of positive stress. Learning to do that, and actually that gave way to a new passion. I was able to come up with a really, really nice recipe for cheesecake. Okay. That friends, and when I asked my family and friends to try, they actually raved about it. So that positive stress, what started out as positive stress, actually became the seed for a new passion project. So now, from just being a PR practitioner, I am also a happy and proud cheesecake entrepreneur. So
Wow.
I've been telling my friends, I have a PR pen in one hand and I have a whisk in the other. So with these two, I am ready to step out into the new normal, or the next normal, as some would call it. So
Take home.
definitely, it's that coming from positive stress gave birth to a new passion, which became a new business venture.
Pa-try naman.
I know.
Siyempre.
Yes.
Hindi ako makamove on sa cheesecake. Na-imagine ko.
Why not? I'd be happy to make you try.
Doc Gio,
Aw.
what can you say about
Yes, yes.
the concept of positive stress? Parang kulang na
Ah,
mga government officials natin ng positive stress.
oo, parang gusto ko silang lalong bigyan ng stress. parang, parang, parang hindi pa enough. Ano to, ako siguro I'll have a very different take.
Protest
Balik,
ano nga?
oo, babalikan ko yung isang point na nabanggit ni Isa yun na parang na we have to accept our current situation right now. Wonderful na meron tayong mga parang mga positive stories, and they're really great, and we see that all the time on television. Ang isa sa mga gusto kong ma-recognize, ma-affirm din sa conversation natin na ngayon, yung reality na people are in fact not only under stress but also some are grieving. It's a very difficult phase, to be honest. And sabi ko sa inyo, very, di ba, negative yung sociology. Nakikita kasi
No, it's
namin agad yung
okay.
thanks, Isabel. Nakikita kasi
It's
namin
good nga na
yung,
you enlighten, di ba? Para din, hindi lang dito sa ating panel, sa marami pang
right,
nakakapakinig. Nabibigyan
oo.
sila ng boses, Doc.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Kasi, halimbawa, di ba sa atin, yung grieving process ng mga Filipinos kapag namatayan, collective, di ba?
Mm-hmm.
Collective. So lahat,
Yes.
ng mga OFW from abroad will be back in the country, tapos sabay-sama yung ililibing, halimbawa yung namatay.
Yes.
That completely became impossible. Up to this day, maybe to a certain extent, pwede na ngayon, pero paano yung mga namatay from March until around May? So, and personally sa akin, dalawang people who were close to me passed away. One in Ilocos, one in Jensan. In a normal period, I could easily fly, but certainly not in these cases. And how much more yung many more Filipinos, tandaan natin, lalo nung kasagsagan nung at the onset of COVID, so many people were dying kasi they were caught off guard. Na, ito na pala yung effect ng COVID, especially among the senior citizens and so forth. So in as much as we can encourage parang good coping strategies for people, isa mga gusto kong i-highlight dito is that we also need to embrace grief. Embrace grief. And I think, I don't know, siguro, Miss...
What is it? Embracing grief, embracing or suffering.
Sorry, was I cut there just now?
what does embracing grief, embracing suffering?
Ayun, sorry. It's the internet connection. Yeah, sorry. Yung embracing grief na parang you accept your reality where you are right now. Siguro si Miss Faith can also comment on that. Part ba yun ng centering, Ma'am Faith, na parang this is where I am right now. I am grieving. Let me just embrace this. Let me accept na I am grieving right now. If I'm not mistaken, part yun ng centering process na
Yes.
I am grieving right now. Ay hindi ko i-deny, hindi ako magpe-pretend na masaya ako. Miss Faith, kayo po.
No, I would definitely agree, Dr. Jill. I mean, it was
Mhm.
really important to acknowledge, to recognize it. Actually, here at home, I made it a point to actually talk about it out loud. You know, during the days that you
Good.
would wake up and you feel that no amount of positivity quotes from Pinterest would make you feel cheerful. It's really just saying, okay, I don't feel good today. I mean, I don't feel as hopeful today. And I tell my kids, I tell my children, because I also want them to be conscious that it is okay, that there would be days that we would wake up and we don't feel well about how the day would turn out. And that's completely fine. And that's acknowledging that is important. So I would
Yeah.
tell my husband, I don't feel well. Maybe I'll just walk myself through this for a while, but I'm sure I'll be better. But let me just process this. So that was something that I was saying out loud, that I wanted my children to be very much aware of, because I want them to grow up acknowledging that you don't have to feel happy, you don't have to feel hopeful all the time. That you can embrace feeling sad, you can embrace feeling grief at different points in your life, and that is completely
Yeah.
okay.
To be
And by
honest, I agree.
acknowledge,
No.
also.
Sige, please, Isabel.
And I was
Sorry.
just gonna add to Miss Faith na by acknowledging your pain, dun mo rin mararamdaman, you get to empathize with other people's pain also.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true.
Agree. In fact, yung isa sa mga phrases na gustong-gusto kong gamitin these days, it's okay to be not okay. It's
Mm.
really okay to be not okay. And it's a message that I'd like to share dun kay Miss Mylene Cirilo Menegon. Meron kasi siyang comment dito sa chat natin na what can you say about people who are grieving their loved ones who passed away recently and yet they're expected to be up and about and working. I know sometimes it's too dangerous and nakakainis that we are expected to live our lives like normal. Um, but I do hope, Miss Mylene, that you are giving your time and yourself some time and you are patient towards yourself to accept that you are grieving right now. And if there are opportunities for you to vent it sa isang malapit sa'yo, to talk about it, that's a very, very first step. Grieving is it takes a long, long time, lalo na kapag may nawala sa atin na mahalaga. And do not let work drown out the feelings. Kasi pag ganon, sooner or later, magba-backfire yun through negative behaviors and self-destructive behaviors.
Excellent. Okay. Last 15 minutes na daw tayo. But
Ay,
Oh my
wow.
gosh, that was so quick.
Bilis ha?
I know. I thought you were just warming up.
I know.
ba? And because we were all under lockdown, it made us into some kind of an instant existentialist. Now we're talking about the meaning of life, the center of life. We don't care about shopping anymore. We don't care about. So I would
We
like
still
to.
do. Dennis, we still do.
Nasa PR si Ma'am
Wala naman sa usapan niya. Nakikinig yung asawa ko. Okay pa yan.
Nasa Lazada ako every day.
Itatry pa namin cheesecake ni Miss Faith.
Saka cheesecake.
Yes. Thank you, Isabel.
Yung gusto ng audience, they want to raise this question for the two ladies, and of course later Doc Jail will give his synthesis of our discussion. What beliefs are you looking to preserve, and are you willing to give up after COVID fizzles away?
You want to go ahead, Isabel, or you want?
You go.
Okay.
You can go ahead.
I mentioned earlier about being that kind of person that wants everything structured and planned. Okay, while all these things during life in COVID-19 have taught me to actually be more resilient, yeah, as I mentioned earlier. But still, that's me. That's my personality. That's who I am. I want everything planned. I want everything structured. But what I'm taking away from this pandemic is that I need to embrace, the days when things do not go as planned, and for me to accept that it's okay. To accept them, that there would be days when things would go awry, and that's okay. So it has actually planted in me that newfound determination to let go, to just be more patient when things don't go as I want them to flow. So, and that said, it has also led me to actually embrace a much deeper faith in God. We all, I'm sure you're familiar with this verse that God's thoughts are not our thoughts, God's ways are not our ways. So, those words have never been truer than me learning about the reality of those words during the pandemic. Because really, God's ways are not my ways. Things may go out of control, but the thing is, God is the one who is in control, and that is all that matters. There's also another quote by Marcus Aurelius that says, "Don't worry about the future. If you meet the future, you have the weapon of reasons that will arm you, which are actually arming you in the present. So there's actually no need to worry about it." So I'm going back to that in terms of like, yes, plan things as best as you can. But if things don't go as planned, things don't work out as planned, then it's okay. Try again. Try again. Acknowledge that, it's not going the way you want it to go, but it's okay. Just try again. So I'm not in control. God is in control, and that is all that matters.
Tisa?
I think that's a really beautiful verse, Miss Faith. His ways are not your ways,
Our
and
way.
his thoughts are not, your thoughts. So I really like that verse as well. And also the ability to evolve and adapt sa situation quickly. Kasi the more time you cry over spilled milk, ang dami mo oras and opportunities na you miss out on. So, although it's important to really acknowledge how you're feeling, pero natutunan ko na dapat akong dahil biglang wala sa plano ito eh. Kumbaga, kagaya ni Miss Faith, ganun din ako. I do my short-term goals and then long-term goals. So at this time, dapat ito na-achieve ko na to. So, dahil sa pandemic, lahat yun, wala na lahat yon. At yung mga projects na gagawin mo, wala na rin lahat yon. Pero you have to really adapt and evolve according to this new normal. And what other more opportunities lie in this situation na if you just really open your eyes, paano ka makakatulong? And also, this is not the right time to be selfish. This is the time to really help out one another and let kindness overflow. Kasi mahirap itong sitwasyon natin, pero kung tayo ay magkakatulungan at magkakaisa, this too shall pass. Malalagpasan din natin ito at makakaahon din ng bayan natin.
Emotionally overwhelming. Grabe kayo mga millennials, ha? You're so pregnant with ideas. The nation.
Grabe ba you pregnant with the ideas already?
Okay, so let's now hear from our resident sociologist, Doc Gio.
Sir Dennis, I
your
think
final
Opo. Sa panahon po na ito, and nakita ko isa sa mga nag-comment sa Facebook natin ay si Ma'am Lina Alba Sebastian. Sabi niya, Filipinos are generally resilient and could easily cope with any situation. But this pandemic provided a different and my difficult challenges to all sectors. Gusto kong gamitin yon bilang aking sa pag-frame ng aking parang final words. Precisely because we are all affected, then we have to start thinking about how we can come together to fight back. Hindi siya pwedeng kanya-kanya. Yun yung, di ba, we began yung sabi ko kanina, crisis has a tendency to cripple our values and our virtues. Kasi dahil hindi mo na kaya yung situation, magsasolo ka na, magsasarili ka na. Right? And that's the unintended consequence of any crisis situation. But thankfully, ang kagandahan sa Filipino culture, sa kultura natin mga Filipino, we're very sociable, di ba? Hindi mo pa kilala yung bago mo pa lang na-meet, pwede mo na siyang yakapin, etc., etc. Obviously, kailangan natin ng mga physical distancing ngayon, pero the point I am making is that we have that ability to connect with one another. So, in our own ways, just send a message to your old friend sa Facebook or sa Twitter, kamusta ka? That might make a huge difference. Or share a word of God. Gusto ko yung verse na yan, for your ways are not my ways and your thoughts are not my thoughts, and they're higher. The Lord's plans are much, much bigger. Sometimes those words can be very, very reassuring as well. So at the level of our personal relationships, mahalaga yon. But at the same time, gusto ko rin na makita natin na tayo mga Pilipino, bilang sama-samang mga Pilipino, we can hold our leaders accountable as well. Gamitin din natin yun, yung kapasidad natin na magtanong tayo at this time na parang magtanong pa lang, parang terorista na agad. Diba? Magtanong pa lang, parang branded ka na agad as NPA. I think all the more that we should question, what are you hiding? What are you not telling us? What are you trying to hide from all of us? Obviously, people are getting sick. Even doctors and nurses are already dying. Kasama yun sa responsibilidad natin bilang Filipinos at isang lipunan. We will not be able to fight this battle alone. It's only by coming together that we can overcome this. And hopefully, by the grace of God, we will see a much, much better year and much better season in the days ahead. Maraming salamat.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm too honored to be a part of this online discussion. Thank you for your brilliant ideas. Thank you for inspiring us. I hope that after this pandemic, we'll be able to create the kind of world that we really want. A world of personal integrity, forgiveness, service, dedication to the common good, and lots of love for humanity that goes beyond the ego. And maybe one that goes beyond the law of the classroom. Do we have more questions or? Yeah. Do you want to say anything to our viewers? Mukhang nabitin yata daw sila. Baka meron kayong gusto nga ipabaon pa sa kanila. Konting shout out daw dyan.
Oo, ang daming nanonood sa atin. Nakakatuwa naman. Hello po, students ba natin to sa Trinity, sir? Ang daming nanonood. Hello po sa inyong lahat.
Shout
Hello
out
to
sa
everyone.
mga Trinitians.
Hi to my CASE family, especially for my very supportive co-faculty from the Department of Languages and Contemporary Human Studies. Maraming, Doc, would you like to? Yeah. Gusto ko.
Shout out to President Wildfire. Wilfred. Sir Dice. Si Sir Dice.
Hello, good morning, President Wilfred. If you're listening in or watching. Hello po.
Sir Wilfred. Maganda umaga po, Sir Dines. Maganda umaga po sa inyo.
Entire Trinity University of Asia community din, no? The faculty, staff, administrators, friends, alumni, students, to the Dean of CASE, Dr. Howell Ho, the Vice President for Academic Affairs, Dr. Luna, and the Vice President for Administration, Mrs. Leonora Inhente. So let's stay home when you can, wear a mask when you're out, but please stay safe, stay sane, and humane. Let's be humane. Let's love each other. Let's support each other. Maraming salamat for joining us.
Maraming salamat po. God bless everyone.
God bless.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good weekend. Thank you, Doc. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Isa.
Salamat po, Ma'am Faith,
Thank you po.
Isa, Jay.
Doc G,
Salamat po, Ma'am Faith.
so ulitin ha.
Opo, gawin natin to. Oo, kailangan may cheesecake na.
Yes. I'll make you taste
Today.
my signature peanut butter cheesecake.
Whoa!
Wow!
Ultra sinful.
Ayun. Okay, God bless all of you.
God bless.
Okay.